Good morning. Today is August 27th, 2013. My name is Sidney Goldman, representing the Jewish Historical Society of Fairfield County, and this is being recorded at the Archives in Stamford, Connecticut. Our honoree today is Marvin Lawrence, Marv, born February 16th, 2019, February 16th, 1926. He's age 87. He served in the Navy from 1944 to 1946. So let's turn to Marv now. Okay, Marvin, thank you very much for coming in. What we do today will be go to posterity. A copy will be going to the Library of Congress. You'll get a copy, and one will be stored here at the Archives in Stamford. So tell us something. Let's start in the years leading up to your military service, where you were born, where your family came from, education, and so forth. I'll pop in with occasional questions.
Yeah, well, I was born in the Bronx, New York, and my dad was from Russia. My mom was originally born in Russia, and then from Russia she left Russia with her family after about 3 years, and they went to England, and she was in England for maybe 12 years where she was educated. And the interesting part about it is that when my father and my mother, they met in the millinery market in New York, and I guess they fell in love, they got married, and there was a nice scene on Sunday morning because my father taught my mother Yiddish, and my mother taught my dad English. He spoke with a slight accent, but after a while he was perfect. And he spoke a few languages, because I know he spoke Russian, and there was another language he spoke too. I'm not quite sure what it was, but anyway, Yiddish, excuse me, and that was it. So he spoke a couple languages, and that was it. He was in the millinery business, and he was specialized in the straw hats. That was the thing at the time. And my mom worked in the millinery business for a while, and then they got married, and after they got married, they opened up a laundry in the Bronx, of which my father ran. My mother used to work at the Mangle, and she used to service the girl there. You know, she used to do the final ironing. So they turned out a great, great product, and they were very well liked and known in that part of the Bronx.
Yeah. Now let me back up a little bit. Your parents' parents, your grandparents, what did they do in Europe? That's part of the. And secondly, why did they leave Europe and when?
Why they left Europe, I really don't know, because there might have been the problems there at the time, or they foresaw some kinds of problems that were working up against the Jews. So they decided, let's get out of here, let's go to a country like the United States, of which they did. And they were very happy, and I was very happy for the fact, one of the reasons well, of course I volunteered, but one of the reasons I love my country is because they allowed my father to pray and keep up with his religion. And he used to go to synagogue maybe every morning when they needed a minyan. He was just a block away from the synagogue. So they always would call Julius. The Jewish would never turn him down, because he did what I loved. I used to watch him. He used to be a good Jewish man, and the family were terrific. And I was bar mitzvahed, my brother was bar mitzvahed, and I also had a sister, but she wasn't bat mitzvahed. And because of the fact that we really didn't have, or my parents didn't have that money. I mean, we lived nicely, we had food, we had clothing, and at the same time, I was bar mitzvahed on a Thursday, because then you're allowed to get bar mitzvah on Thursday, because that's when the Torah comes out of the scrolls come out of the, open to the public, and that's one of the reasons. We couldn't make an affair, they couldn't make an affair, which is just as well, and that was it. So that was it. But they made sure that I was bar mitzvah, and I made sure I learned my Haftorah, and that was it.
Okay, so tell us where you lived
I
and
lived
what
in the
schools you went to.
I went to the Bronx. I went to the first school I remember was PS 23 in the middle of the Bronx there. And then from 23, when we moved, I went to PS 61, which was on Boston Road. And out from there, I went to junior high school Herman Ritter, which was about a block away from 61. And from there, after I graduated there, I went to Manhattan High School of Aviation. And I was there, graduated from there, and from there I popped right into the service, but they didn't allow me at the recruiting office because I was still too young and I hadn't graduated. So they promised me, as soon as you graduate, just send the right application in and you will be in within 1 week of when you graduate. So anyway, I was in about 3 weeks before my birthday, my 18th birthday.
Now, at a young age, did you already decide on aviation trades or so forth?
Because I was interested in aviation, and there was something there that, what do you call it, that just made me want to go that way. And besides to getting into the school, I was fairly decent in math. So I took an entrance exam, and luckily enough, I had passed, and then I was able to go to high school. I didn't want to go to some of the local schools they were pretty big schools, and but the thing is, this is where I wanted to go. I wanted to see if I could get in there, and I really did. I got in there. It was a great, thing for me to be able to pass the test and get in there. And my arithmetic teacher told me, she says, Marvin, she said, nothing to worry about. I don't think you'll have a problem passing the test. She was right.
You were living in the Bronx during high
I lived
school?
in the Bronx all this
And
time.
how'd you get to school each day?
I took a train.
The D train?
Yeah, the IRT from 174th Street, and I used to take it one stop further, which was Freeman Street. And the Freeman Street, they had a train, used to go every 15 to 20 minutes, which was a 3rd Avenue train. It used to take me closer to school. So I used to take that train, and it was closer and it was more convenient. And besides that, I used to sit in a little cubicle and do my homework before I went to school in a cubicle. So it would fly.
Okay, so from what you said, you basically enlisted
Oh, yeah.
in the Navy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And tell us about your training, where you were stationed, and
Well,
so forth.
as I say, I was stationed in Sampson. That's where I took my
At Sampson,
boot.
New York.
Sampson, New York.
Upstate
I took
New
my
York.
boot, and from there, because of my qualifications in aviation, they sent me to school again, the Navy, to Kansas. That's where, no, excuse me, that wasn't Kansas, it was Memphis. Went to Memphis. From Memphis, I went to school with the Navy for a couple of months, and then from there, we went to different places throughout the country. Radar school, and there was another school I went to be able to qualify to get into a squadron. And I did get into a squadron, and we formed a squadron in San Diego. San Diego, that was my first, believe it or not, first trip to Hawaii by ship, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the ship. I didn't like the fact of getting seasick and stuff like that, but I knew I was going to be flying for the rest of my career, which is which I did. So that was it.
So you were in Sampson, New York,
Yes.
Memphis, San Diego, a couple of other places
Yes.
during training.
Jacksonville.
Yeah. A couple of places in the South, sounds like.
I was in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. What exposure, if any, did you have to any anti-Semitism?
Well, that's a good question, because I was with what we call the rednecks, the Southern boys. And because of the fact I was a good athlete. So I used to play with them all the time, being on all the teams. They would always ask me, come on, you play with us, bro. So I was what they consider a white Jew. all right? And this is exactly what it was. But I got along with everyone, and that was it. I knew their mentality was what it was their culture, but I got along with them because I think I get along with anyone, knowing, what I was up against. But I was fine. I had a good career, and as I say, I got excuse me, I got along with everyone because I knew just their thinking was, and I got a lot of friends. I used to communicate with them when I went to different places, and that was it. So,
how did you adapt to military life? The physical regimen, the barracks, the food, the discipline, and so forth?
no problem, because I ate everything, It wasn't a matter of being kosher or things like that, but I knew if I wanted to, enjoy my career, I had to go along with the crowd. So that was it. I didn't make any demands of saying, well, I'm kosher and things. No, whatever they gave me, I ate. And that was it.
Now, as you moved from these different areas for training, did you have anything to do with the local Jewish community?
Yes. In
what way?
fact,
Tell us.
in the way I got involved with the local people on the Jewish holidays, they used to get in touch with the commanding officer of the base, that is the local synagogues and temples, and tell them for the holidays, we would like you to have the Jewish boys, the Jewish personnel, and be invited to the synagogue and besides the people's homes. They volunteered their homes so as to, take care of us during the holidays. And I thought that was very, very nice. I really appreciated that, and so did some of the Jewish boys. We didn't have that many Jewish boys, but at the same time, whatever we did have, whatever the amount of fellows there, we all were invited to different people's houses. And I once had an affair, not an affair, excuse me, I don't want to use that word, with a girl who I enjoyed very much. She was a terrific gal. I used to communicate with her. And that was it. And I told her maybe one of these days, when the war was over, that we could get together and so forth, but it never happened. So that was it.
Okay, so you alluded before to going from San Diego to Hawaii.
Yes.
You want to pick it up from there and tell us now the rest of the war, like sequentially what you
Well,
did?
what we did from there is we formed the squadron, Air Sea Rescue, and we went to different places, and going to different islands, I met some, missionaries, which was very interesting. And what they did is we got along fine, and I made a couple of friends with them. And what I used to do is in the process, the chef or the head cook of the base loved to take photographs, pictures. So I managed to get him to go up with us and take pictures of the different islands because he was a photo bug. And my pilot said it would be perfectly all right. In doing so, what I used to do is I said to him, listen, I'm going to this particular island, I know the missionaries there, give me some stuff that I like to give them. So I remember I used to bring around different kinds of food and boxes of cheese for them. They didn't have it. They had other things because the ships used to come through there once a month and used to unload food for them. But what I did is I used to get a lot of that stuff for them beforehand, and that's what I did. And I remember.
When you say them, is this the missionaries?
Missionaries.
Or troops? Okay.
Yeah, missionaries.
Yes.
And or the nuns. They were all nuns. And one of them I remember when I came there the second time to see her, she had crocheted a beautiful, handkerchief or something for my mother. And she crocheted the whole thing, loved mother and so forth and so on, from her son, etc. And also she put a name, sister something. I forget her name, of course, it's a long time. But that's what it was. I enjoyed them very much. They were quite terrific people to put up, their life, their whole life was the fact that they were with the natives and they took care of them. whatever their needs were, they were there for them. And that was it. So I thought that was a terrific thing.
Now, how much airtime did you put in?
I think I had about 400 hours of airtime. And then, of course, I flew myself when a pilot asked me to take over once in a while. So I put in maybe about 10 or 15 hours logged onto me because I did the actual flying. But I always had a co-pilot with me. I wasn't taking any chances.
And what's it say when you say 400 hours? What's a typical
Well,
length of a flight?
Well, your flight is a couple of hours every time you go out there on patrol. So that's what it was. So it was.
And what did you do? What did your
I
flight do?
sat. I had a separate, what do you call it? A little room there that I would sit and look at the instruments. I had the same instruments as the pilot did, and I would look at them constantly, and that was it. So in other words, my instruments coincided with his, etc. And then I would call it. Then I would watch if there was anything wrong, any questions. I would just call him, and tell him, I'm watching this, I'm watching that. But everything was always okay. And we had one incident I still remember. We were flying from one island to another island. I don't remember one island to one island. But anyway, I noticed that the bulb in the front of the engine, one of the engines was leaking. So I called that to his attention. Now we're here. Oh, we were coming back to the United States. I was in Wake Island, coming back to and the funny thing about it, not funny thing about it, I saw there was a leakage. So we were like halfway back to the country, to the mainland, which United States. And what happened is that we decided, the pilot and I and the other pilot decided, well, let's go back. So we turned around, we went back to Wake Island. And we went back there, and I took the engine apart, took the bulb, that's the front, the part where all the rotation takes place on the inside, and we found out we had a brand new bulb, or what you call a tube or something like that. And what it was is that I looked at it, and it was only the stuff it was shipped in, what we call coralcatone. That was a material that they put on it when they're shipping anything, and it wasn't cleaned well. So that's what we thought was an oil leak, but it wasn't. It was only peralcatone, so we cleaned that off and we took over, went back to the United States.
Okay,
And we,
so, yes.
we came into Treasure Island, which is right near San Francisco. And then what, funny, the way things happen sometimes is fantastic. Harry Truman was our president at the time, and just that there was a statewide, countrywide strike on all the trains. The trains weren't moving throughout the whole country, and Harry Truman came out with a ruling. I want all the kids who are coming home, I want those trains to move, and right away. That's what they did. So we were able to come back, as I say, we came back to Lido Beach, Long Island. That's where our home base was. Got discharged from Lido Beach, and then I went home.
Okay, so now you're in air sea rescue.
Right.
So tell us what you actually did in that
Well,
sense.
once in a while,
some
yeah.
incidents, if you can recall.
Sure, once in a while, we get a emergency where there was a plane down. And we went looking for it. We were never able to find it. And there was another incident, once in a while we used to do that, where we were flying over the island. There was like a little problem with the natives, and they were scared of the big plane. They used to call it the Big Bird. And we used to get orders to fly over there and fly low so as to calm these people down. And that was it. That I definitely remember. So we used to go, once in a while we used to get a call to go over the island, just fly very low, and let them know we're watching what's going on. But the natives used to call us the Big Bird. And they were afraid, because they didn't know what it was all about. So we managed to calm them down, and things got back to normal.
Any particular rescue mission that you can recall
No,
that?
no, not at all. No, we went out one time looking for a plane, we never found it. Never found it.
How about if a ship was struck by a submarine or
No,
something? Did
we
you-
didn't, no, didn't have that. We didn't have that. The only thing is that we go out once in a while, the natives of the particular island would get lost. There was a problem with the ship that they were on. And so we would look for it, and if we spotted it, we'd call back to the base, or, you know, their home base, and they would go out and get them, because we didn't have to go and land at the time. We just reported that back, and they would take over from there.
Now, what base, what was your home base during this time?
Well, a lot of different places, a lot of different places. I mean, every place from the Marshall Islands to the Carolina Islands, and then to Guam and places like that. That's part of the route. And then, of course, we ended up in Wake Island, and from Wake Island we came home.
And what exposure did you have to combat scenes?
None, none whatsoever. I guess they knew that I was there. So they figured, you know what, let's not fool around, let's get this thing over with. So that was it.
Where were you when the atomic bomb was dropped on Japan?
In San Diego.
We were already,
Yeah, no, I wasn't back, I was just going, we were just leaving. And we were all ready for it, but one of the things about anybody in going overseas, such as the pilots, what would happen, they would have to be in perfect, healthy condition. So one of the pilots needed a extraction, a tooth extraction. And because of that, we were delayed probably about a week and a half to 2 weeks. And then in the meantime, what happened is the atomic bomb went off, and we still went there, to the Pacific, but the war was over. And I remember I was in San Diego at the time. I was going crazy because the war was over, and that was it. And there's a famous picture in the newspaper of one of the sailors. It wasn't me. He had this girl, and he was giving her a big kiss. And that was the end of their run. That was one of the things I remember. I wasn't there to take a picture, because I was someplace else with my girlfriend.
and to what extent did you maintain friendly relations with any of your former military buddies?
Yeah, we used to communicate after the war was over. Used to communicate with a couple of them. Yeah, I used to, and then after that, that fizzled out. Because they were all different parts of the country.
How was your adjustment to civilian life?
Easy, easy.
Why is that?
Because I got, there was a job, I wanted to stay in. And my mother and sister begged me not to stay in, and I wanted to. But I requested staying in and flying the mail around the country. And I wanted to be, but they never gave me what I wanted. I would have been stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. And I failed it. I didn't fail it, but they wouldn't give me what I wanted, requested. So that was it, and then I came home, and that was the end of that. And then from there, I got different jobs.
Those were the days when kids listened to their mothers, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I used to get the letter, please, please, let's come out and enjoy life. We have a job waiting for you through some connections and so forth. And the funny thing about it, one of the first jobs I got was with a fraternal outfit, a Jewish outfit called the Verband. I don't know if you're familiar with them. And their office on 17th Street in Union Square in Manhattan. And I got a job with them, and I used to work the mimeograph machine and stuff on and so on. They sent me to school for about 3 weeks to learn it. And from there, I worked in their office for a while, and then from there, I went different places.
When you look back, how would you say the war, your time in the military, affected your outlook on life or philosophy?
No, I was just glad for the fact that we came out the winner. And that was the thing that I enjoyed about it all. We lost, unfortunately, got a lot of guys, And that was an unfortunate thing, but this is what war is, it's hell.
And what did you learn? Just being in the military, what did you look back? What?
Oh, well, I would say I respected, the people, and I wanted to learn different things wherever I went. I wanted to learn, I wanted to stay wherever I was for any period of time, and then I started to get a little bit anxious because I wanted to do something more constructive. So at that time, I went to work. No, I didn't work. I went to school on the GI Bill, and I became a meat cutter. And that's what I learned. I figured all the meat cutters, all the butchers during the war were making a lot of money. I figured I might as well get in, black market, the whole thing. That was my aim. But anyway, this is what I did. So I had my own business, and I worked at a big wholesale place first in New York. I remember I worked for a gentleman by the name of Weintraub, and Weintraub owned the company called Puritan Beef, and he put me in charge of a certain department. I was under the the care of a fellow who had the job originally, and we got along very, very well, but I think he had a little problem with the boss. So boss, said, Marv, listen, I want you to take care of the job, whatever it was, and which I did, and I think he's the only, well, I didn't work for too many people, but he was the only one I could remember that would tell me, Marv, come and sit down in my office, I want to talk to you. I went in his office and I remember him telling me, we're making money in your department. You don't hear from that, You're making money, so I want to take care of you, monetarily. So that was it, so he did, but I still remember him being that nice to me.
Now, how long did you work at Puritan until you went into your own business?
I worked there a couple of years, and then I went to work after that, there was a fellow that came in to work with the office. I didn't particularly care for him. I have my ways and he had his ways and so forth. So I didn't like I didn't like working with him. So I went to work on 14th Street for, I think it was Jack Kahn, who's the actor. His uncle had a meat plant, and I got a job with him. But that was his uncle, not for Jack Kahn. Am I right? He was an actor. Jack Kahn, we know him. Psychic, remember? Yeah, well, anyway, he was in it, but anyway, I worked for his uncle for a while. And then I opened my own place in the Bronx.
And how long did you stay
I
there?
stayed there a couple of years, and then I decided to sell it because it wasn't a good time to sell it, of which I did. I opened up a luncheonette, which is, as I told you, was right near Bronx High School of Science. And I stayed there for a couple of years, and that was it. But thank God I had a friend. I wish him on anybody. He found out about the luncheonette being available. So I said, but his name was Tiny. Tiny, I said, I can't, I have to go for a loan, a government loan. He says, baloney, I want to see you tomorrow. I want you to have that luncheonette. I walked into his, but he owned a bar. Walked in there, believe it or not, he gave me $2,500. Here, I want you to have that luncheonette. Now go ahead and get it and go. I had another friend of mine who went in with me, and that was it. So I will never forget him. When he passed away, I was like, forget about it. I was uncontrollable. And that's it. And while I'm talking about it, I'm even getting sad.
When did you move to Stamford?
52 years ago.
And what kind of work did you do then?
Oh, I went into the siding business, siding and roofing and windows. And I was with my brother-in-law. And because he was already working up here in Connecticut. So he says, hey, look, you have something to do, come in with me. You do the canvassing, I'll do the closing. Sounded good to me because I like people. So I was knocking on doors. And I enjoyed that. And then, of course, he retired, And then I took over my own siding business and roofing and window business, which I was right across the street from here. I was there for about 20 some odd years. And that was it.
And when did you retire?
About, I would say, well, actually, I retired before that, but I sold it to some gentleman who wasn't really a business person. I have my, what people are, there are two kinds of people that what do you call it, I talk about. Is a person who is in business and a person who is a business person. You know, you get that drift, and that was, he was not a business person. And yeah, I stayed with him for 5 years. He paid me every penny he owed me, you know, from the business. And after that, I said, I can't work for him. And 2 months later, he blew it. I knew he would, but it's unfortunate.
And was that your retirement when you saw
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
And how,
yeah.
when did you actually retire?
I would say, let's put it at about 6 years from 6 years past now. So this is 2013, so it had to be like in 2007, 2008.
Okay, so you're in your 80s already.
Oh yeah, 87.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And still, what do you call it? I still play my golf every Monday.
I know, I see you there.
Yeah, right. I do okay, and then I'm not that great, but I do enough to hold my own.
Now, as we look back at what this conversation has been, are there some areas that maybe you'd like to talk about that we haven't touched on? Whether it be
Just, yeah, well,
incidents or philosophy or whatever.
yeah, the only thing that I can honestly say, which was quite an interesting story, I got a call when I lived in the Bronx. And I had a friend of mine who was a musician, and he used to work in the Catskills. And he became very, very friendly with Jerry Lewis. And Jerry Lewis used to bed with him. At that time, it was a Brown's Hotel, and Jerry wasn't in the business yet, but he was like a busboy and a waiter and things like that. So his friend of mine who was in the band at the hotel became very close. A terrific story, I love it. Anyway, eventually, after Jerry became pretty big, I get a call from this friend of mine, Nat, who was the drummer, and he says, come on down to New York. Jerry is at the Capitol Theater. He's entertaining there. I said, oh, terrific. I love it. He said, I want you to meet him. So I go down there, and I get to meet Jerry, and he was terrific, a terrific guy, very, very, not hospitable, but very generous. You know, he was naturally involved with the television program. And so I said to him, Jerry, I would love to meet Gene. What am I talking? Dean Martin. I want to meet Dean Martin. He says, sure, absolutely. He said he had his own room. So sure enough, about 5 minutes later, Dean comes in. I meet him, but before he got there, Jerry says to us, my friend and myself, he says, when he comes in, I'm going to give you a signal of 3. 1, 2, 3. We grab him and throw him on the bed and undress him and throw him out. That's exactly what happened. So he came in, so Dean came in, and I met him, a great, wonderful guy, and then old Jerry goes, 3, and we grab him, and we throw him on the bed, and we undress him with, but I still remember he was wearing boxer shorts. That's what we left him with. We took him all his clothes and threw him out with his clothing, and I never heard so much Italian cursing in all my life. I learned a few words myself, but I mean, he went nuts. Anyway, we threw him out, and that was it, and we heard about it about an hour later. You know, but anyway, that was quite something. I did enjoy it, but the fact of being able to tell people that I, with the help of other people, grabbed him on, we undressed him and threw him out the house, out of their office, and that was it. So that was it. And I always liked on the station in California. I used to like to go up to I was in San Diego, up to L.A. And up to L.A., went to the Beverly Hills, And I was in uniform, and the people were terrific. Very, very, what can I say? I'm talking about, about the armed services. And they would respect us and all that. And then I finally, when I got to Beverly Hills, coming out of the Beverly Wilshire Hotel was a beautiful blonde with her husband. So I was with a friend of mine, John. I said, John, they're coming out to get their car across the street. You stay here and I'll stay here we'll block when they come out, and get your finger up, and we'll see if we can get a ride. So.
Were you in uniform?
I was in uniform.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So anyway, as they came out, we both got in the way, so they couldn't go any further. Where are you going, sailor? Oh, we're going any place you're going. She said, okay, fine. And I take a look at her, and I said, she's so familiar. So I says, excuse me, ma'am, what is your name? My name is Mrs. Jackie Briggs. She was Ginger Rogers. So I spoke to her. I says, excuse me, that's your married name, but I know you are Ginger Rogers. She says, that's right. So I had the pleasure of riding in her car. She took us into I guess Hollywood. Went to Hollywood and dropped us off. And naturally, we thanked her. And as we're walking, because we're in uniform, this guy pulls up with a big car, and it was Frank Morgan. Hey fellas, you want to ride? I mean, people were terrific. Anybody in uniform. And that was it. So that was one of the most enjoyable things. Then I used to I didn't stay there, I used to stand in front of, there was a very famous restaurant there, Prince something, I forget his name offhand. And I used to stand there, used to see all the celebrities going in and out. And a lot of times they would ask if they want to come in and join us. We said, no, it's not necessary. So that was it, so it was beautiful.
Being in uniform had its advantages.
Oh,
huh?
absolutely, no question about it.
Any other military-related stories you want to touch on?
Not that I could think of now. Not that I could think of.
How did you end up in Stamford?
Oh, I was working in New York, and as I say, I had my business. My brother-in-law was up here, and he was doing well in the siding business. So he approached me one day. He says, "Hey, listen, I also had a cousin also in the business too." He said, "How about coming up to Connecticut and working with us? You're personable. You could, you make friends. So what you do, all you have to do is just, knock on doors," which I loved. Used to meet people, talk to them about putting siding on the house. It was a new thing to people, and the fact that we were approaching them by knocking on the doors, which was very helpful, and we did very well. And then he decided to retire, and I took over, and I opened up this place across the street here.
And your wife, where is she from, and how did you meet her?
That's another story. She's from the Bronx, and we had gone, I told you before, I belonged to this organization, the Faband, and we had, what would you call it, we had two Israeli teams, soccer teams, come here to play two American teams. So being with this organization, I had gotten tickets. And I remember there was a big shot senator who had requested to have somebody with him in the car. So I volunteered and I stayed with the car. We went there. Meanwhile, I had tickets, so I gave my brother a ticket, and he took this girl to the games that I had tickets for. And that girl ended up being my wife. She went out with my brother originally. They didn't hit it off too well. At least she didn't. So anyway, that's how I got to meet her at the Yankee Stadium. And it was I forget the name of the teams anyway, two Israeli teams, and they played the American teams. Whether they won, I don't remember, but that's where I met my wife.
Well, I think this has been an interesting chronology, and as I say, it'll be for posterity.
Okay.
And unless there's anything else you want to add?
That's about it. I have a son who was in the in the military for 26 years, and he came out about a year and a half ago as a lieutenant colonel. And then my daughter-in-law, who he had met in the service, she was in for 27 years, so they got to meet someplace during their career in the service, and they got married. So that's my second son. My first son never got married.
So you might say you have a military family.
Well, yeah, I would say, but he didn't listen to me. He joined the Army. I'm a Navy man. He says, well, I think the Army's gonna be better, offer me better promotions. I says, Mike, God bless you. I mean, just do what you have to do. That's, you know, so you're doing the right thing.
Well, things have changed since you had listened to your mother, right?
Right, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Marv, thanks so much for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
Okay.